let's go ahead and start with designing an API. This is where we're going to start to talk about some of those external VCS changes. So just to lay the groundwork, historically, external VCS was supported as part of the implementation journey, but it wasn't really part of the design journey. We would sync sort of with the MuleSoft VCS behind the scenes, but we had no support for like GitHub or some of the other VCS systems that VS Code supports. So that's why this is super awesome, because it sort of completes that life cycle of offering support for those various systems. Most popular one is GitHub. That's what we're going to be using today. So let's design an API spec. I'm just going to call this contact sync API. And we'll set the location. That's fine. The language we're going to be using today is OAS YAML. So let's go ahead and create our project. And this will open up sort of an empty one for us. And I can open up my empty YAML file here. And we'll wait for everything to sort of spin up. And now we can start diving into the VCS changes. So once this sort of finishes up here, I'm going to actually navigate to this source control tab here along the left-hand side of the toolbar. And what I can do from here is publish directly to a GitHub repo or initialize a repository. And in today's instance, I'm going to be initializing a repository. I've already connected this to my GitHub account, but for folks who might be doing this for the first time, usually it might ask you to sign in. Basically, when you click one of these buttons, it's going to say, hey, do you want to log into GitHub? You can say, okay. And then it sort of does that authentication exchange, and you'll be able to sort of work with your GitHub account. So I've already signed in. I don't have a repository. In fact, let's go ahead and just jump over to my repositories. I don't have anything in my GitHub account other than this account creation API, which we'll be using later in today's demo. So we're starting from scratch here. And essentially, I'm just designing, I think we've all seen this API spec before. We're designing an API that will allow users to basically input some contact data and have that sync to a system. But anyways, back to the source control tab, we have all of our changes. So if you hover over any of the icons here, it's going to tell you what those icons mean. So here we can see that this is an untracked file. If we want to stage any of our changes, you can do so using the plus button. If you want to discard changes, you can click this icon, or you can open the file itself. So I like to just stage and commit all of my changes, at least just to get that repository up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and stage that change there, and then this change. And I don't really need these files to show up in my repository. So what I can actually do is right-click these and add these files to my git ignore. And you can see that my git ignore now has these files, and I can stage that change as well. And then from here, I can enter in my commit message. So I'm just going to say first commit. And let's go ahead and commit my changes. Those have been committed. And now I can publish my branch. It's going to ask me, hey, do you want to publish this to a private repo or to a public repo? I'm going to choose private. And you can see that we're publishing to GitHub. Everything went through successfully. So let's go ahead and open up GitHub. And actually, that's going to open up in a separate tab. I'm just going to refresh the one that we have open. And now we can see our contact sync API here. We don't have much in there. It's pretty blank. So let's take a look at what it's like to sort of push some changes. So I'm just going to go back here, and we'll bounce back to VS Code. And we'll close that and open up our empty YAML file. Here we have all of our endpoints. Like I said, this is a simple API with a contact. You'll be able to retrieve a list of contacts or create a new one. The use case here isn't super important because we're just mainly looking at the GitHub functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out and save. But you can see here back in our source control tab, we now have a notification icon letting us know, hey, there's some pending changes. If I hover over this M icon, it's going to let me know that this file has been modified. So I can go ahead and stage this change, enter in my commit message, and then we'll just say like initial schema commit, and we'll sync our changes. Wait for those. And now if we come back and we refresh, we can see that the last commit was right now. And if I open up my YAML, we now have all of this additional information in here that we just modified. So let's talk about branching. That's really popular. Most people aren't pushing directly to main. They might be working in a feature within a dedicated branch. So we can explore what that looks like. Here in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see we're working with main. I can actually click on this, and I can create a new branch right from within the UI here. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to say ID implementation, because I'm going to be adding some additional endpoints that allow users to basically look for a contact by a particular ID or modify a contact using an ID rather than just creating one from scratch. So here, where you can see that we've created our branch down here in the bottom right, we're in the ID implementation branch. And as always, I'm just going to publish this branch just so that it's out there, it's created. And then we're going to make our changes. So let me go ahead and paste those in here. And like I was mentioning, this is just going to add in a couple more endpoints here. So come here, whoops. And we'll paste, save. And if I open up my API console, you can see that now we have our ID endpoint here, and we have our get and our put endpoint. So those are the two new endpoints that we added. Once again, we can see that our changes have been reflected in the source control panel. We've modified our YAML. I'm going to stage these changes. And for our commit message, I can just say ID implementation. Commit and sync. And now let's take a look at GitHub. And if I come back here, this is my repo. It's letting me know that there is a pull request happening on this new branch. So I can actually dive into this. Here I'm able to create my pull request. So ID implementation, that's fine. Added additional endpoints for ID. And I'll create my pull request. And I can merge it. So it's going to have me confirm my merge. And now if we bounce back to main, what we're going to see is the most up-to-date changes as part of our YAML file. So I've opened up my YAML. We're on the main branch. And you can see the additional endpoints that we added down here as part of our schema. So that's how users might work with external VCS for API design. Now that's starting from scratch. We're creating a repo from scratch. We talked a little bit about how to create a branch or pull request, things like that. But let's say you have an existing repo. How do we pull that in? Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm actually going to close this project here. We don't really need it anymore. If we're to come to our file tree here, there's no folders open, but what I can do is I can clone a repository locally. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to say clone from GitHub. It's going to pull in the repositories that I have. And this is where we're going to use that account creation API that I had mentioned earlier. This is that repo that already existed. So I click on that. It's going to have me select a location for this. I think right here is fine. And we can go ahead and open up that repository. So that's how you would clone an existing repo onto your machine and then have access to those files. So you can see here, it pulled in my API spec. This allows users to create an account. So it's going to have things like, let's take a look here. It's going to have things like the company name, phone number, address, things like that. That's all going to be listed here. That's what this endpoint does. And that's essentially how I would pull that in. And then from here, I can sort of do any of the things that we just talked about earlier. I can create new branches. I can make updates. I can push those updates. But yeah, so that's going to round out the first thing that we released as part of Anypoint Code Builder's February update. We're going to move sort of into the next portion here. But that's going to wrap up the external VCS support. And this rounds out that life cycle, right? Like I was saying, we support external VCS, that same user journey that we just saw as part of the implementation when you're designing your applications, things like that. And now we're bringing it to the API design portion. So end to end, you're able to sync all of those changes, stay connected with your team, always make sure that you're working with the latest code and going through the proper development processes. And as part of this, I know we took a look at GitHub, but we do support any of the VCS systems. I guess that's redundant, version control systems. Anyways, we support any VCS that's supported as part of VS Code. So it doesn't have to be GitHub. Any ones that VS Code supports will support as well.